Today I'm intending to get the engine ready to go back into the frame. As you know, it's a project bike I bought. I actually bought it for the parts, and along the way I found interesting things about it. The engine, which had been rebuilt, hadn't been done particularly well, but had some exciting Yoshimura pistons in it. If you're watching this playlist, you probably think I'm doing this the day after the last video. In reality, it's been about 3 or 4 weeks because I've had a lot of other things on, and I'm thrilled to get back to it. I really want this to be on the road this summer. So, what am I doing today? Before I put the engine in, I've got to make sure that any bits that need to be there so that when it's in the frame, it can stay in the frame, are on. And the funny thing with these single overhead cams is this rocker cover can't be taken off in the frame unless you modify the frame. So I've got to get that on. Working back from that, I've got to set the valve clearances. Might as well do that while I've got the head off. Working back from that, I've got to put the cam chain tensioner in. Working back from that, I've got to think, am I going to use the blingy bits? Because once I've put the cam chain tensioner in, I can't really take this back out. So this is the starter motor cover. So I'm going to start with starter motor cover. Let's have a look at how that works out. Then cam chain tensioner, then set the tappets, and then I've given the rocker cover a nice clean. Now, I haven't made it mirror shine. I've cleaned it up so it's nice and serviceable. I'm still not sure what I'm doing with the cosmetics on this bike, and it might be that if I decide to change what I'm doing, this has to come out again, but it's not going to come out until I've been riding it for at least a little while. Make sure everything works. So, doesn't it look pretty? So that should end up on. Let's crack on with that starter motor cover. I think that'll be okay with the seal. However, that doesn't look too groovy, does it? I think what I'm going to do is, I think for now, I'm going to clean this and put it back on. I think I'm going to leave that to one side. It looks a little bit like it might just be too chunky, and I'm not going to put effort into working that out at the moment. Give that a quick clean over with some brake cleaner, and then it can go back in. The way that it works is there's a bolt through here and a spring, and when you've undone the bolt, you can push it all the way back. You undo the bolt, it pushes out against the cam chain, and when it's in the right place, then you tighten this back up, and that's it. It just sits there and pushes against the cam chain. There's a guide, so it's quite simple. They do cause a lot of problems on all kinds of Hondas. They use the same design for many different bikes, and they do wear out. This one seems fine. It's 10mm, so you don't want it springing out all over. You can see how it pushes out. Well, I'm going to push it back in as far as I can. And then when I set up the cam chain, I'll explain how it goes. Need to find the gasket for that, and then it can go on. As you can see, the pad on the actual tension has got a metal face to it, and it goes on that pad that you might be able to see inside the block there. Why these things cause a problem, I'm not sure, and yeah, it's one of these things that just always seems to be something that people complain about, and maybe it's the way they're tensioning them. Right, I've got a new gasket on it, I've got the screws, get it screwed in. Looking at the clearance on the cam chain tensioner and that cover over the starter motor, I can see a whole world of pain with that finned one, which is probably why it was in the box and not on the bike. Setting the cam chain tensioner. This is another one where, does the internet know best? Checking carefully through the workshop manual, what I find is, it tells you to reassemble the top end, and you have the cam with the notch to the top and the timing with it on 1 and 4 top dead center, which actually means that the number 4 is on the firing compression stroke, not number 1, which is what you would have thought. And at that point, you slacken this off, let the thing slide in and tighten it up again. However, on the internet, it suggests that you actually move it forward another 15 degrees, which is not a lot. Now, I've got the cam cover off, or the rocker cover off, so I can actually have a look. And although it doesn't say it in the manual, I think the internet might be right, because if you rotate it forward just slightly, you will actually see the pressure coming off the cam on this rocker. And what that means is that the cam chain itself is under less tension. And what you want to do is adjust it when it's at least tension. So I am going to rotate it forward slightly, and then I'm going to set the cam chain adjuster, and then I'm going to consider that as the job done on that part. But it's interesting, the more you read, the more you can get confused. If you just follow the workshop manual, it's probably best, but sometimes there are some little wrinkles that just might make it that little bit better. This might be one of them. I'm going with that anyway. You possibly saw the tensioner slip in then, so I just needed to tighten up that bolt, and then all I need to do now is tighten up the lock one. There we go. That should be fine till it needs doing again. The workshop manual gives you 2 positions to have the engine in to do all of the tappet clearances. The first one is to have cylinder 1, that's the side nearest to me, on the compression stroke at top dead center with 1 and 4 showing on the timing marks. When it's there, if you look at this table, those are the ones that you can set. What you do then is you turn the engine over 360 degrees, so all 1 revolution, so that number 4's at top dead centre on the compression stroke, and then you can do the other ones. That seems a sensible way. It looks like I've cut my finger. I didn't even know I'd done it. Luckily I'm keeping it all in there, it'd be nice and safe. Right, so to find top dead centre here, turn the engine over till you see that the inlet valve's coming back up, then watch the timing marks till they get to 1 and 4, and then you're absolutely rock solid. You've got it in the right place. And there's 1 and 4 coming up, and now we're on DDC 1 and 4. This should be good. Now the manual says inlet is 0.02 of an inch or 0.05 of a millimetre, and exhaust is 0.03 of an inch or 0.08 of a millimetre. I'm going to do them in thou because I've got a nice set of feeler gauges that's got that on, but you can use either. And when it's set like this, I should be able to do the inlet and exhaust on number 1, the exhaust on number 2, and the inlet on number 3. So I'll get on and I'll set them now. Just need a screwdriver and a 10mm. So exhaust on number 1 and exhaust on number 2. 3 thou, so fits in between there. And we'll put the spanner on there and screw this in. Till it clamps it. And I just got it so I can just move it. Okay, so clamps, let's go. So what I need to do now, just move that round. Oops. This is where I actually need 3 hands, but I haven't got the 3rd one with me today. So move in, move that back off. Clamped, moving. Still got a drag. Make sure I've got that held tight. Firm that up. You don't need to give it the gorilla. It just needs to be firm. Make sure this will go back in. And it won't. Oh yes, it will. Nice little bit of drag. That's fine. On to the next one. Clamped, off, clamped again. I'll leave it clamped till I get my spanner. All I need to do is just lacking it off till it's moving. Got a drag on it now. Tighten that down. Still got a drag. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Again, don't need to gorilla it. And then I'll just check. Nice sliding fit. I'll do the rest of them and then get back to you. And now turn the engine 1 revolution, 360 degrees. Oh, compression's a bit firmer. And then make sure it comes onto the top dead centre mark again for 1 and 4. There we go, 1 and 4. Dead centre. So now we can do inlet and exhaust on 4, exhaust on 3, inlet on 2. The job is a veritable good one. That's all the tappets set now, and hey, it's a lot easier when you've got the rocker cover off. It's a bit of a faff when you're fiddling about through those little holes, but hey, not to worry. So I think now all I need to do is give it a really good clean on the gasket face. I've got a new gasket to put on, clean the rocker cover, get them on, screw it down, and at that point I'll put the caps back in. I should be able to think about putting this in the frame. Now, which way am I going to do it? Because at this point, I'm really not sure. I have in mind, put it on the floor, lie the bike down, put it in. But I've got the young gun helping me, and he's got a bit more muscle than me, so maybe he'll just monkey it in. Let's see what happens. Points to note with the rocker cover. It does have the rev counter drive inside it, so you've got to make sure it matches up with the camshaft drive before you start really forcing it down. There's a couple of dowels in the front, and I must admit I had a bit of an issue with one of the dowels. Really couldn't get it to sit down. At first I thought this was banana shaped, but I was wrong. So what I did was I just reduced the length of one of the dowels so that this would fit nice and straight. I'm not quite sure what was wrong with it, but it's fine now. I'm going to use a new gasket. I have got an older one that's a bit compressed, but I like a nice fresh gasket so it'll compress okay. Now, there's lots of information about this, and a lot of it seems to be what local practice has been for people who've learned the mechanicking in the past. When I was doing training with mechanics, I was told, this kind of gasket, put a bit of grease on it. The grease will fill some of the little voids that are there, and it makes it nice and easy to come back off, because you're bound to have it off before too long. Other people say Honda Bond. No doubt a lot you'll see with silicone sealant sticking out. I'm going to go with grease. If it does turn out that I need more than that, you can lift this rocker cover while it's in the frame, and I can try and put something else in. But I'm thinking a bit of grease, reasonably tightened down, and that should be fine. Now, I tend to try and do this, put all the bolts in where they're going, and you'll see they all stick out pretty much the same distance. There's a cover to go on here, so that's why they're sticking out further. And I've got one missing. Now, I will have one of these somewhere. I'll go and dig it out. I'm a bit surprised though, because I thought they were all in the bag. Right, what I'll do now, I'll find that one, and then the next step would be tighten them down, and tighten them down from the middle to the outside. There isn't a torque spec for this that I'm aware of, but usually they would have had a JIS headed, cross-headed screw, and these have got cap heads. You can give a lot more force on a cap head than on a JIS. You don't want to be pulling threads out. So when I put these down, I'm only going to do them to the pressure I could get with a screwdriver, not with a lever. So let me find that, and then I'll get them screwed on. Typically, the one that's missing I can't find, so I'm going to take it out of another set, which is possibly what happened to this. It got borrowed for something else. So made sure I've got the right size, and then when I come to use this one, who knows when, I'll be thinking, oh, I wonder why there's one missing, and I'll have forgotten this altogether. Let's hope I go and watch this video so that I know. Now, having got to this stage, there's a temptation to get a gun and go. However, the threads in here need a human touch, so I'm going to do them all by hand. That way I can feel what's happening. Typically putting in one that I don't need to put in yet, it's for the cover. Any that feel tight I will back off and have a go at. This one's firmer. always makes me nervous, these screws into aluminium. These are stainless steel, so it's good practice to put a little bit of grease on the thread. It's not so important into aluminium, but certainly into steel. They'll seize for fun. Now, I had to nurse a couple in, which seems fine, even though I'm sure I went through with a thread chaser and did all of these. What I'll do now is I'll fit this cover, and I'm using a brand new seal as well. Then I'll tighten them all down using that end till they're all snug. Then what I'll do is I'll go back again around, and I'll probably go 1/8 of a turn or so from the middle to the outside. Now, I'm not going to actually put this engine in for another couple of days, I think. I'm not going to move it. So I'll come back and I'll do that, feel the pressure on the 1/8 of a turn again, after I've left it for about, a day or so, to just let the gasket settle down. So I'm just going to do that, get the cover on, then I'll get the tappet things on. It's fun, this, isn't it? I do love it though. Really love it when you see assemblies coming together. I can start to see an end point, and the end point is me riding the bike, and I'm getting a little bit more and more excited about that. So let's get the cover on. Not going to get any nearer if I don't do that. Of course, I forgot to mention these two, which I won't be able to see again. So once I've tightened them, that's as much as I'm doing. So like I said, till they're snug, and then about 1/8 of a turn, maybe not even that much. Till they're snug and about 1/8 of a turn. So I'm happy with that. This is just a breather, so no need to worry about it too much. And because this is a big bore engine, someone's actually put an even bigger breather onto the side of this as well, so I'll have to make sure that goes to a pipe. I've put a new seal on. It's 2 to the back. So snug, and then about 1/8 of a turn, but judge it sensibly. Doesn't need to be monster tight. I'll go through the rest of them now. I've got the screw for the rev counter drive that'll hold the rev counter cable in, and I'm going to put fresh O-rings on all of these, so I'll just pop them on, tighten them up, and then I'm ready for the engine to start moving off here onto the floor. If you notice me swapping about, you always put your least chewed ones to the outside, and you never chewed them up, did you? Because you don't want people to think you're a gorilla. Not like the time when I was doing that. They're 17mm, so I'll just snug them down, and literally just snug them down. They don't need that. And I'm ready to rock and roll with this now. What a good do. You want them tight enough so they don't come off, but not so tight that you can never get them off. I'm very pleased that there were actually no disasters with that. It went together quite well in the end. So everything's ready now. I should be able to put it in the frame. It's always a bit of an ordeal because it's such a heavy engine. So why not subscribe and see how we go on with that? Because that's coming very soon. Thanks very much for watching anyway.